Well, session 8, as we're going through the book of First Thessalonians, looking at what we can learn about making disciples in the context of our D groups, has us staying put in First Thessalonians 2, 11 through 12. Paul says this, he says, "For you know how, like a father with his children, we exhorted each one of you and encouraged you and charged you to walk in a manner worthy of God." And we talked about last session how disciple making is like being both a mom and a dad. We are loving and gentle as a mother, but then we're like a dad and are speaking with authority into people's lives. And we need to camp out on this point for several sessions, I think, because speaking with authority is something that is so countercultural to us. Our culture tells us that aside from smoking, the last thing that you should do is speak with any kind of authority into somebody else's life. But yet that's what we're called to do, not only as disciple makers, but as disciples of Christ. Ephesians 4 talks about the whole body of Christ, the whole church, speaking the truth in love into one another. That then is the way that God uses to grow the whole church up into maturity. The main vehicle we have for that within our D groups, the way that we want to learn and grow in speaking with authority into each other's life, is through our fight clubs, through those smaller groups of people as they're growing in their ability to be disciple makers, in part in learning to speak with authority into somebody else's life. Now, how do I do that? How am I supposed to speak lovingly with God's authority into the life of another person? Well, throughout the scriptures, anytime you see authority exercised, anytime you see an example of leadership, the picture that we're given most often is that of a shepherd, what it looks like for a shepherd to lead. And you think about what a shepherd does, is a shepherd knows his sheep, feeds his sheep, leads his sheep, and protects his sheep. Know, lead, feed, protect. It's the way we speak with authority into somebody else's life. And in this session, we're going to concentrate on that knowing piece. Now, how do you know somebody? Now, it seems obvious, but the reality is that we're not very good at knowing people, nor are we good at making people known. Now, part of it is a function of time. We've already talked about living intentionally so we get more time outside of just that big group meeting with the people that we are called by God to invest in. But once I start getting that time with somebody else, how do I seek to know them? Now, it really helps for me to have categories in somebody's life where I can pursue them in relationship. And if I think about my life, there really are three main categories my life falls under. That in my life, I have a personal aspect of my life, I have a spiritual aspect of my life, and I have a missional aspect of my life. Personally, what's going on at work, in my relationships with my family, the hobbies that I'm into, just what I'm doing. Spiritually, how I'm relating to God, and ways in which I'm growing, or ways in which I'm struggling. And my missional life is what I'm called a mission to do, how I'm loving people and serving people, investing in people for the cause of Christ. And as I'm asking questions about somebody's personal life, spiritual life, or missional life, well then how do I go deeper into really knowing them? Now, I was trained to think about conversations and knowing somebody as every person having three layers of relationship they want to give you in that conversation. You start out asking, hey, just what's going on? Give me the facts. What's just going on in your life personally? The data. What'd you do Tuesday, for example? And as that person tells you what they did, the facts of what's going on, well, the way that I move deeper into knowing them is then asking them that second level of questions. Okay, if that's what's going on, then that second level is, what do you think about that? How are you processing that? And as I'm learning about their thoughts, what they think about those things, well, the way that I go deeper then into really knowing them is not only what do you think about that, but thinking about that in that way, how does that make you feel? Ways that I can use questions to really know somebody. Man, so what's going on in your personal life, your spiritual life, your missional life? And then hearing what's going on, well, what do you think about what's going on? And knowing what you think about that, well, then how do you feel? It's the way I come to know somebody in a progressively deep way, and the way that person also then is invited into a relationship and feels known as you're trying to love them, trying to know them. So how do we speak with authority? Know, lead, feed, protect. And how do we know? Well, what's going on in that aspect of your life? What do you think about what's going on, and how do you feel about it? That's how we start moving into somebody's life to speak with authority into their lives as we're making disciples.